My name is Dr. Jace Hill. I'm a veterinarian that works here at Case Creek Veterinary Clinic. I've been here for about 2.5 years. We are predominantly a horse practice where we specialize in sports medicine and equine podiatry. Prior to vet school, I was a farrier for about 12 years, and that's what has led into my career as more of a equine podiatrist versus just general medicine. So yes, when it comes to competitive horses and the lower limb, you see it take its toll over a period of time. So as a farrier, where you see a horse every 6 to 8 weeks, you see the evolvement of one, ligament and tendon, soft tissue injuries, and how that correlates not only the shoeing, but also the management and care of that horse. So yes, through my career as a farrier and now as a veterinarian, I see a lot of injuries, how they evolve, how they come about, and then obviously the rehabilitation and treatment. The horse is a very large, well-built, well-muscled animal, and when you look at the force that is taken from the musculature in the upper body and then is distributed down into the lower limb, it is a very large amount of force. And we see fractures, we see ligament and tendon injuries just simply from the horse exerting itself through a well-groomed arena. Then you start looking at horses with conformational defects or poor arena quality, things like that will only more predispose an animal with that kind of force driven through that lower limb to tear ligaments, tear tendons, damage muscle, and damage bone. So they're prone. It's not really a matter of if a horse is going to get a lower limb injury, it's a matter of when, which ultimately leads to my interest in this idea of just something else which will be very effective to help prevent that injury. So a lot of what I personally work with as far as podiatry goes, along with the sports medicine, blood flow is huge, and because it is limited in comparison to the upper body in that lower limb, if you can not only facilitate increased blood flow but prevent the loss of blood flow, you get better healing, you get better prevention as far as preventing injury, but also in the treatment. I mean, even right now we're using platelet-rich plasma, which is simply taking blood, concentrating it, putting it into injuries, and you're seeing better regeneration. So anything that we can do to improve blood flow is going to prevent injury, improve healing, and just overall improve the performance of the horse. But yes, in comparison to the rest of the body, the lower limb does have a limited blood flow that you want to essentially preserve the best you can. So I think a boot should be taken for what it is, as a protective sleeve and essentially an aid in supporting you in warming your horse up, protecting your horse during performance, but then evaluating and understanding how warm that leg can get when the horse is in a long, drawn-out performance, or whether it's multiple performance over the course of a day. I personally do not like to leave boots on my horses. I like them to be on when I warm up, when I perform, and then I like to remove the boots to try to not only reduce the risk of bacterial infection, dermatitis. So the horse boot industry has tried to take a couple different approaches. One, protection. Two, mechanical support. Me personally, as I've ridden horses throughout my life, competitively, passively, I have not seen a splint boot support mechanically enough to make me a real believer in the mechanical support of the boot. So me personally, when I recommend to my clients or for my personal horses using a boot, it's for protection from blunt trauma and to manage essentially the integrity, comfort and a little bit of support, but I don't think it offers a great amount of mechanical support. It's more, for me, it's more just a protective device that we're using to prevent interference where you're going to get bone injury or concussion of your tendons and ligaments. To a certain extent, your technology is trying to maintain, keep it from getting too hot, but to a certain extent, that initial warm up, having a boot helps increase the temperature to increase elasticity, but there is that point where you go from being warm and ready for performance to being hot and essentially damaging your tissue. The biggest problem I see with boots on performance horses is cutaneous abrasions and infections, fungal, bacterial, and you get a dermatitis following that heat and moist environment that's left for a long period of time, and you end up with this dermatitis that extends up the limb and can be a little bit of a nuisance. It's more of a visual and slightly irritating. It doesn't usually result in the breakdown mechanically of the horse, but it is a problem that way. The other thing I do see of as far as a mechanical breakdown is boots that are applied too tight. I do see that. I get pressure sores from boots, and then just like the whole question and concern that we're raising is how many of these tendon ligament injuries are worsening, or are we at a higher risk because of the increased temperature for a long period of time? I really like the phase change aspect of the boot, where you're pulling heat from the leg, the boot is absorbing that heat. Huge benefit that's not provided on the industry right now. And that's something that I would love to see on my horses. I've had the opportunity to use it once, and I think it's a great product. I would love to see the Phase 1 boot take off and be able to use it more so that we can really evaluate the extended use of the Phase 1 boot. I think that the sensor is a phenomenal idea. And to be able to monitor that and know, okay, maybe this boot isn't going to completely resolve the heat issue, but at least we will know when we've got to a point where the leg is too hot, and we're entering that realm of cell death, and we can remove the boot, allow it to cool, and then reapply the boot and go and perform. So those aspects of boot I think are phenomenal. Anything to reduce bacterial growth is a must in a boot, and the fact that you included that in the boot I think is phenomenal. So not only to reduce the risk of dermatitis developing because of the moist, warm environment, but as the studies have shown, to reduce the risk of cell death and tearing a ligament or a tendon that's going to put my horse out for months, if not at career ending. And so the Phase 1 boot allows me to do that, because not only if my horse does require the boot for an extended period of time, it's going to help keep that temperature down, but it's also going to tell me when I need to remove that boot. And then I think for an owner to be cognizant of that and know when that period of time is going to be huge to your horse. Not only to his comfort, his performance, but just to your longevity and the horse's performance career. The Phase 1 boot made by Zebra Equine Technologies is a boot that I endorse and I will use on my own horses and recommend to my clients because of the features within the boot that are just that little bit extra that will help improve your performance and longevity of your horse. So one thing that I see a lot of when it comes to boot application, riding your horse with a boot, is I think we sometimes we maybe don't fully interpret what we're trying to use the boot for. Like I see a lot of people warming their horses up without boots. I think that's okay, unless you want to try to keep in mind that we're trying to warm the tendons and ligaments up, and then when we're done, we want things to cool down, or at least not continue to heat up. And so the idea of maybe applying the boots before you perform, but then taking them off immediately after, may be a little more, maybe more conducive to preventative as far as preventing tendon and ligament injury. The other thing I see a lot of is I actually see some people, I see some, over tightening boots. A lot of times I see under tightening boots. And you get debris, and that can be abrasive to the tissue, the skin. And so making sure that you have a good tension on your boot so that the boot is applied, it's on, but it's not creating a pressure sore. So there's a fine balance, learning how to put that boot on so it's comfortable for your horse, but not causing pressure sores. Big thing is washing your boots. My boots, I like to run them through the washing machine. I like to clean them. The cleaner that boot is, the less likely you are to develop scratches that can turn into an issue. And the other thing is just keeping in mind how detrimental a suspensory, deep digital flexor, superficial digital flexor tendon injury can be to the use of your horse. You're looking at, with any one of those injuries, to one of those tendons, you're looking at 2 months to 6 months to maybe a year of not performing on a horse or career ending. Anything you can do to prevent injury in that area is beneficial to you in the long run. And so things like using a boot that you can gauge the temperature, using a boot that pulls the temperature from the leg, using your boot wisely, applying it before you warm up and removing it immediately after you perform. Things like that I think are very beneficial and little points that if you understand the anatomy of the horse, you'll understand why you do things. It's not just something we do. It's think about the little things we do.